depending on the size of any e-commerce site, the site navigation, the site architecture can really make or break your e-commerce experience. And this really does depend on how complicated your product line is. But the more complicated your product line is, it becomes more critical. But this is not to be ignored for even someone who has a one product site. Your site architecture, your navigation structure, how you get from category collection to collection, page to page, that really needs to be considered. And that's just a fancy way of saying, how do we group things together so that people find what they need as quickly and easily as possible? That's the goal, right? It's like we all hate when we're in a new, my wife sends me, hey, if you can go to the grocery store and pick up these 5 things, it'd be really great. And it takes me an hour to find those 5 things because I'm not familiar with the grocery store. The grocery store, for whatever reason, doesn't have a map or anything like that, and so it takes forever to find that. Now, some grocery stores have finally done better at this. Like Publix, I think, does this. And, even though it's not a grocery store, Home Depot does this, but, it'll tell you aisle 5, this is where you'll find this thing, whatever. They've improved that because they've seen that, hey, it's not really great when we send people wandering through a giant warehouse trying to find Swiss Miss or something like that. And so your site is the same way. We want to get people through this, finding what they need as quickly and easily as possible, because otherwise our conversion rate's going to suffer. We're just not going to maximize the traffic we're sending there. And by the way, when your conversion rate, when this suffers, your ROAS suffers on your ads, other areas of your site that you're looking at, your marketing dollars don't go as far. It influences many other places. And so good navigation is like a really good map. It's meant to help people get to where they want to be as efficiently as possible. A bad map will waste their time, or an incomplete map would waste their time. It makes them frustrated. It has you running down certain paths and then back. And ultimately, it lowers conversion rates because people leave. It also may have your customers missing things that they may want to know about and potentially purchase. And that's the other side of this. It's not just minimizing distraction, or it's not just, or I said another way, it's not just maximizing your path through, but it's also making sure that they're seeing the products that they might want to buy and knowing about them. And so let's kind of get into this. Let's unpack what a well-optimized architecture can do and how it can increase conversion rate and average order value, which are 2 golden multipliers that can really multiply our business. Let's look into this. So we got 6 tips here. So the first one is make it simple. When it comes to navigation or site architecture, simple is really important. A good architecture and navigation doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to show everything. It simply needs to get someone to the next correct step. And so that may be just getting them to the right category page. And then from there, they can drill down to the next category page. It is getting them down their path to the next step. It may not be a category page at all. It may not be a product at all. It could be a warranty or a brand page or something like that. So we should make it simple and go from there. The second tip is give multiple doorways into various products. And now what do I mean by this? Well, it's funny how some brands, and I understand why this is, think that products can't sit in multiple categories. Well, they can. There's nothing wrong with putting products in different categories and them sitting in multiple categories. The goal isn't that all the information is tightly organized so that your accountant can review it. The goal is that products fall into the right places where users are going to look for them. And that may mean certain users walk through certain doors and certain other users walk through other doors. This may mean multiple ways that you have multiple ways to get to the same products because different people think about those products differently. For example, like you might have a product that sits inside of a sale collection. When we're doing promotions, we often like to create collections for that promotion for that particular sale. So that product may sit in that collection, but it also may sit in the men's collection. It may also sit in an outdoors collection, and that's okay. So we want to make sure that there are multiple doors, multiple pathways to our products. And that means creating doors for different people. The third tip is use really good design to allow someone to easily drill down and find their categories, their collections, or their products that they're looking for. Now, we've all used mega navs, mega menus, and they've gotten a lot better over the years. But those are those, big expanding menus at the top of the screen. Those can be really great, but they can also be very badly designed and very frustrating. And so you have to make sure that that's not happening. But if you have a complex and nested product line, then using great design and technology to allow the exposure of those products to the people when they want it, to your customers, is really important. That's a really great way to let someone navigate your entire or see really quickly the breadth of your architecture, the breadth of your product line. But you need to make sure it works on mobile, and you need to make sure it's organized in just simple ways. And that goes back to tip number 1. Don't use this method just because. And so you should only use a mega nav if you need to use a mega nav because you have a product line that warrants it. Otherwise, it just gets clunky, it just gets distracting, and just another thing that can break. And so there's no real need to do that. Tip number 4, use great page structures. And now we just talked about navigation. And I would say most people, when they think about site navigation or site architecture, they think about the navigation of their website. That's that top menu. But the truth is that all the elements on your entire site are leading into each other. Navigation is and the journey through your site is actually the sum of all those elements, right? And so it's not just navigation of your website, the menu, it's also the page structure and how you create doorways on page into other areas of your site, into other products that lead to each other, that lead on an intentional path to purchase. And so the way you do this is by creating a cohesive site customer journey. And we'll link to that where we've actually discussed that in depth. The customer journey walks people naturally through your experience, right? It may intentionally bring someone through some brand pages or brand elements so that you're selling your brand, which is a concept we talk about a lot. That's so important. It may be how people get through one doorway if they have a certain type of interest and into that world or your world that you've created for them of that interest and leads them to the products that they might like. And ultimately, that just ends up typically on collection pages that have certain filters attached to them or certain product pages, and so that they can easily purchase. But let them have places outside of your navigation to explore your products. Don't just think about this as the menu of your website. Something also to note here is that you need to design for 2 primary types of users. There is the browser. That's the person who doesn't know what they want necessarily, and they want to browse the store. So we want to make it easy for them to get around and logically get them to products and help them make a decision. And you also need to account for what we call the laser. And that is someone who knows what they want and they just need to get there as fast as possible. And any distraction is more likely to frustrate them or make them leave than help them. So we need to account for that too. So we need to make it easy for them to find that thing, maybe the search bar, maybe a certain menu, navigation at the top, or something like that. Tip number 5, don't oversell. And so we talk a lot about the value of your brand and how you really need to win a fan. You don't just want a customer. Having someone buy your brand and not just your product is really what you want ultimately, because that is how you bring someone into your world and create value inside of your company. And so you need to make sure you bring your brand into the architecture that you designed. You need to weave it into the experience. So your architecture, your navigation, your page structure shouldn't just be products and shouldn't just be selling. It should also be brand pages. You want to get customers to go through brand elements. And this is how you end up selling your brand and not just your product. Your navigation, your pages, the elements on your pages, they should all have ways to get you to branded pages that you're also selling those brand elements throughout, in addition to the products that you sell. Because ultimately, you don't just want a purchaser. You really want a customer who buys your brand, who ultimately can turn into a fan. And that's what's really valuable. Our last tip number 6, it all starts with your customer. Now, this could actually be the first tip, but we left it for the last one because it is the most important one. If you haven't completed an e-commerce customer avatar, go to our site and actually complete that. Knowing your customer and knowing the types of customers and what influences them allows you to get into their mind and allows you to design your architecture and your site experience and your brand experience optimally for those different types. If you don't know those different types, then it is really hard for you to get into the mind of your customer because you don't know what their mind is. You don't know who they are. In order for you to complete this architecture, you're not designing your site for you, you're designing your site for your customers. And so you really need to understand who your customers are and how they think. And that starts with creating an e-commerce customer avatar, which you can get at our site. And so just kind of wrap this up, there is a lot to be gained from a good architecture, but there's actually more to lose from a bad one. And so just be simple and remember to think like your customer. And now if you need help improving your e-commerce customer journey, we do that for a lot of brands, and we have a lot of experience there. So feel free to reach out to us and we'd love to help you.